I'm just going to show you how to tape the wrist. Usually you get wrist pain might come along here or here, and that can follow holding a baby for long periods with your hand in that position, or it can be from playing tennis too hard. Sometimes it's reaching out for the kettle and just accidentally lifting more than your wrist muscles are trained to lift and causing a sprain. So the simplest thing is a small piece of dynamic tape like that. You don't actually need very much. I've just cut that off. I'm going to tear it in the middle to open it up. As it opens, just got to be careful that it doesn't fall back on itself, and that's why I'm going to use my fingers like that to do it. I'm going to put it on the middle of my back of my wrist. Down it goes. You can see I'm quite an expert at one hand, but you might need help doing this. Let it seal without a stretch, just that first little bit. Then put your wrist in the position of power, which is slightly back like that, slightly up and slightly away. So slightly away that way. Give it a stretch there like this, so that's pulling your wrist back. You can see my skin pulling, and then take the stretch off the last little bit. So release the stretch, and now I'm just going to push it in gently. And it heat seals, so just give it a moment without too much movement. Now, just to go back to the position of power, think about if you lift up something heavy. So imagine that that was a heavy thing, and just imagine how you lift. It's wrist slightly back and slightly sideways that way. So that's called ulnar deviation, going away from the thumb. That's radial deviation, ulnar deviation, just slightly like that. And if you're uncertain about your position of power, just go to grab something heavy. Don't lift it necessarily, just go to grab and imagine you're about to hit, and you'll see lift, and you'll see the position your wrist automatically goes in. Now, if you've been lifting or holding a baby for too long, you often get pain down here. It's called de Quervain's. That just means a pain along the length of the tendon. And there's usually some inflammation, sometimes swelling. Also, tennis players can get that if they work too hard in that position. So this tape I'm going to do to support the thumb side a little bit more. So I'm going to go, this one I'm going to go higher than the joint there, because often that joint there becomes a little bit sore. So just above the joint, hold it again in. I'm going to go slightly into radial deviation to give it a lot of extra support. So no stretch there. Now I'm going to put the stretch on. So stretch in that position, and then take the stretch off for the last little bit. Now you see how I put it on in that position. That's going to stop me going too far that way. So because it's flexible, allow me to hold. So if you're playing tennis, it'll let you hold slightly ulnar deviation, but it will stop you going too far. So it gives you that support for playing tennis or for holding the baby. It'll help you to remind you to hold your wrist a little bit more like that rather than like that. So it's tight when I go like that. It reminds me to hold my wrist up a little bit more. Okay, good luck with that. Oh, I'm going to tell you how to take it off. So to take it off, you pull the skin away from the tape, not the tape away from the skin. If you're uncertain about allergies, I'd take it off within an hour to make sure there's no inflammation or rash underneath. It's a little bit less likely these days. They seem to have the formula right for these tapes. But what can happen is if you take it off and you just pull with a rip like that, you lift the skin, and that can cause damage to the skin. So I'm using my other finger here. Can you see I'm pushing on the skin as I go? So pushing on the skin there, pushing on the skin, pushing on the skin, taking the skin away from the tape, especially with wrinkly skin. Skin away from the tape, not the tape away from the skin. Same here, you don't just rip it off. You lift, you always get a little bit in, push the skin down with the other finger, and you gradually take it away, making sure that the skin is tight underneath, not lifting the skin up. And you can use some special tape removing oils to help. I must say I haven't found them all that helpful. Okay, good luck with that.